Hello, everyone. I'm Hardik from Learn Web3 and super excited to present. We have a workshop with Stacks on the topic of Web3 in the AI era. So we have Christopher over here who's going to talk about this. I'm personally super excited for this. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And Chris, I'll just hand it over to you. It won't take up too much time. If you could just introduce yourself and then let's get started.
Hello, all. Definitely excited about the opportunity to be able to speak to you all. So, shout out to Learn Web3. An amazing opportunity, I think, is before us from the standpoint of timing. There's so much happening in the space of Web3. There's not a bear market or a bull market, there's a build market because builders build. So, there's so much opportunity from the standpoint of that, coupled with what is coming up the pipeline with AI. So, what happens if we merge these two worlds together? This is the main focus of the presentation. Web3 in the AI era. My name is Christopher Perceptions, and yes, that is my legal last name. It's a very long story, but I'm actually in the growth role at the Stacks Foundation, where we are scaling Bitcoin as a Bitcoin L2. So really, really excited to speak to you all and present Web3 in the AI era. So our time, because I always want to be respectful of time. We can always get more money. We can never get more time. So I always map out our time. The index of this time is going to be focusing on Web3, the next iteration of the internet and how it radically is going to look different. The second phase is going to be AI and how robots are changing the game and breaking rules. And then lastly is going to be the fun part where we're going to ideate and create synergy around what it looks like to combine Bitcoin with AI. But first, we got to start with chapter one, which is Web3. So the web today, as all of us as users and developers can kind of attest to, highly centralized from the standpoint of user data and internet, trust breaches as well as data breaches, which has people second guessing. And then from the standpoint of information and financial value, how it's circulating among a few large entities where they're trading and monetizing personal data, where we generally either don't have access to opt out or even benefit. So one case in point, since we're on Huddle One, the fact that if we use Zoom, this presentation would be fed into their training models and we can't opt out. It's just part of the process. So, this is the current web that we're seeing today, ran by a few. Then, from the standpoint of developer demand, we see developers want more room for innovation outside of data monopolies and also to reduce costs, overhead, and liability from the standpoint of deploying applications, especially if you consider there's so much happening from the jurisdiction side and legislation side within Web3. It's very cumbersome for a developer to wonder if they should make something in their GitHub repo public or should they keep it private because they don't want to have their GitHub repo send them to jail. There's just some really strange things going on. And this is where we see this renaissance is taking place, where a lot of people are ideating about what's new and what's next. And that's where we have Web3. So even looking at statistics from 2021, over 40 billion was locked into DeFi protocols, while NFT sales exceeded 2 billion, and applications being built on top of smart contract platforms have accrued billions of dollars in value, be it a banana, be it an ape, be it DeFi. There's something happening with smart contracts. So as we look at the landscape currently, we see that there is Bitcoin, which most people have kind of written off as like the grandfather, the one that started it all. And it's just digital gold. You can't necessarily program it. It's just something that you probably should have and pass down to your kids' kids. That's the general consensus and assumption. Then, from the standpoint of Ethereum, that's where most people begin to ideate and say, hey, I can get experimental by creating apps and smart contracts. And then there are other protocols that offer the same thing as well. But we at the Stacks Foundation and our community believe that the future is on Bitcoin. Not only is this digital gold, but this is also a platform where you can build applications on and smart contracts as well. So, Bitcoin for us, we believe Bitcoin is the future and the foundation for a new internet. But why? Why Bitcoin? Well, for a few reasons. One, durability and stability. Two is security. Three is true decentralization and open access. And then 4 is going to be value. Value. The value proposition of Bitcoin is very easy to assess. If you were to look at CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, you can see that the current market cap of Bitcoin is well over $500 billion, even in a bear market. Has the largest network in market cap with stronger security and an already established dominance as the best protocol for a global store of value. Bitcoin is the most decentralized of the large L1 networks, ensuring that value accrues to users and creators. And institutions and central banks are likely to hold Bitcoin instead of other crypto assets. One example of that, even from a jurisdiction, an entire country is mining Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin, El Salvador. Now, from the standpoint of the phases of Bitcoin, as we say, in 2009 and 2012, peer-to-peer electronic cash. 2013 to 2019, the digital gold narrative. And then from 2020 onward, this is where we believe the narrative changed in creating the ultimate base layer for Web3 that is truly decentralized and yet with another layer, such as stacks, scalable for Web3, for applications, and for smart contracts. So we believe Bitcoin needs its potential unleashed, and that's where Stacks is unleashing its potential. And smart contracts directly on Bitcoin, it's kind of like some sci-fi Star Wars kind of thing. Most people didn't think that it was possible. And if it is possible in its current phase, it's rigid and not as flexible. But smart contracts in general on Bitcoin is the holy grail. From the read to the write state, read write state with Bitcoin. And this is something that Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, actually envisioned. And this is a direct quote from Bitcoin Talk when Satoshi Nakamoto was active in the space. A completely separate network and separate blockchain, yet it shares the CPU power with Bitcoin. So we're talking about something that interacts with, but is separate from Bitcoin. This is from Satoshi himself, or herself, or themselves. So we believe that the next wave of computing will be powered by smart contracts and decentralized computing platforms. So again, going through the wave of everything, peer-to-peer electronic cash system, digital gold, and Bitcoin to stacks. But there's a problem here. The problem deals with there's an issue with security. And we can see just within 2021, there are a lot of issues with smart contracts, some that were audited, most that were unaudited. And these are DeFi protocols where a lot of people put their hard earned earnings into these platforms in a trustless environment that they believe would be stable, and it failed them. Irretrievable losses, which is horrible. And this is where we wanted to create an opportunity for people to have a different experience with smart contracts that are directly connected to Bitcoin. So enter Clarity. Clarity, a novel language that brings smart contracts to Bitcoin, is designed to prevent common bugs and exploits. So at a high level here, we're talking about Clarity being predictable, secure, with no compiler, with post conditions, and Bitcoin state. So that Bitcoin state piece is really interesting and one of my personal favorites. With Clarity, you have a read access point to the Bitcoin chain, and further plans will enable deeper integration and visibility into Bitcoin. And we're actually going to touch on this very briefly because next month is going to be a really cool month. There's a little alpha in this presentation, by the way. Hint, hint. But before we even get to that point, let's talk about Solidity versus Clarity, not in the standpoint of competition, but just in the standpoint of seeing like what's what differs. So we see that with Ethereum's created in 2014, it's compiled, it's Turing complete, etc. The difference with Clarity is 2020, not compiled, it is decidable, and there are other nuances with this as well. But one of my favorite points to focus on is reentry. With Solidity, reentry is allowed, but it is not allowed with Clarity. And just as the name speaks on, it is simple, it is clear, and it is powerful. So this QR code actually will take you, if you scan it, it'll take you directly to the Clarity website where you can look at the docs and begin to ideate with what's possible with Clarity. So what you see here, even in the contract call area, define read only get contractor or get contract owner. Okay, var get contract owner. And then you can see some of the functions by way of being private or public. So this read only function is where you're able to see the contract owner. And then if that goes through okay, then you're able to see all of that. From the standpoint of what is public, you can see who owns it. And then you can check, which is the begin, try, check is owner. And then if that transaction goes through, then it is able to execute by way of the var set piece. So literally what you see is what you get with Clarity. So definitely check it out. It is very, very important for the bounty, which I will be speaking on a little later in the phase 3 of the presentation. I'm almost done with phase 1, just have to set the foundation. With Bitcoin and Stacks together, it can power the next wave of decentralized applications, especially considering Bitcoin is the internet's choice currency. Stacks is the fuel for its smart contracts since it's tethered to Bitcoin for security, and it makes Bitcoin programmable, putting Bitcoin's 500 billion plus of passive capital to active use. Now, from the standpoint of read state, we see we have that with Clarity. But what about the write state with Bitcoin? This is where we are excited to announce SBTC. It is a revolutionary decentralized layer 2 scaling solution for Bitcoin, 100% secured by Bitcoin. And it enables the creation of products, services, platforms backed by the most secure decentralized blockchain, and it activates the world's largest, most liquid economy. So there are a lot of benefits. We're going to comb through this slowly because this is really, really revolutionary here. So first and foremost, the benefit of SBTC is Bitcoin Write. So SBTC keeps Bitcoin simple and secure functionality while creating a more efficient way to deliver smart contracts, all without operating on the Bitcoin main chain. For anyone here who has ever remotely heard of ordinals, there was a lot of tribal infighting on the L1 side where people were kind of split. Ordinals allowing for on-chain data to be put with Bitcoin, and that's where a lot of BRC20 tokens or meme coins began to appear on Bitcoin. Ordinals where people were putting video games like Doom or Space Invader on Bitcoin, as well as collections. And for a time, it was slowing down the L1, and people were noticing it when they were trying to transact. So people were kind of split. It's like, well, we should keep innovation and experimental things off of the L1, let the L1 be what it is. Some people were saying, hey, let's, welcome everything. Everything that's happening on other chains is going to happen on Bitcoin anyway. But the truth is, from the standpoint of the blockchain trilemma, if we were to look at the three things Bitcoin needs, it is decentralized, has that. It is good for what it is good for from the standpoint of security, very secure, bulletproof, 14 years running. But from the standpoint of scale, that's where an L2 generally is needed. And that's where most people look at Lightning from the standpoint of peer-to-peer payments, Ordinals from the standpoint of being experimental, but that's only L1. This is an opportunity where Stacks really had a chance to shine through. Not too many people know this, but a lot of the Ordinals infrastructure was created from the Stacks ecosystem. So Gamma, as well as ordinalsbot.com, Hero Wallet, which is now Leather, Xverse, all of those came from within the Stacks ecosystem because we're really passionate about scaling. So of course, it only makes sense that SBTC, while having Bitcoin Write functionality, has the capacity to alleviate any sort of issues that may arise from clutter or congestion by being scalable on the L2. Now, continuing on, SBTC becomes the first genuinely decentralized non-custodial Bitcoin peg out. Solving the Bitcoin Write problem, smart contracts can programmably send SBTC or peg it out as Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address. This allows for smart contracts outside of Bitcoin to effectively write to Bitcoin's main chain, which is huge. Then from the standpoint of the other benefits, and there's a lot of them, but just for the sake of moving on, there's the cheaper aspect. There's no crazy fees. It's faster. And generally, it's better by and large. There's no Oracle. There's no alternative L1 chain risk. It's built-in recovery mode, inherits 100% of Bitcoin security budget, just so many different things. But the value prop is what we're going to move on to next. Economically, it's powerful because it has the deepest liquidity, high value settlement. It is secure from the standpoint of the highest security budget, proof of work, and it is decentralized. Sound money with fixed supply, durable, and immutable. And as we spoke on, Stacks enables SBTC. So how this works is we have what is called proof of transfer. It's the consensus mechanism that enables SBTC's open membership. And then it also records all transactions ultimately settled to Bitcoin and rewards based incentives with Bitcoin yield. More on that. Stacks, the native token for Stacks, it has an economic incentive for security and the SBTC peg system, a decentralized global ledger for executing complex smart contracts that settle on Bitcoin every block. And then from the standpoint of Clarity smart contracts, so it all works together in conjunction, secure, predictable, and it has read and react that reads and reacts to Bitcoin state. And this is the beautiful part about it all, the opportunity. So we spoke on how it's durable, how it's secure, how it's decentralized, but it is untapped from the standpoint of its impact. Everything that's happening on Ethereum and other chains, from the standpoint of L2s, stablecoins, NFTs, dApps, DeFi, all of that is happening on Bitcoin now. So there's a huge opportunity. And then from the standpoint of design, spoke a little bit about this, but open membership, economic efficiency, and then Bitcoin finality. Now, this is the fun part, how it works. We're going to focus on peg in, then we're going to move forward to peg out. And then shortly after this will be some alpha. Then we're getting into the AI component. So with how SBTC works, pegs in from the stacks layer, and then the SBTC protocol threshold, signature script. And then from the standpoint of the Bitcoin-backed assets, they're deployed into smart contracts and transactions are secured by Bitcoin, one block confirmation, boom, SBTC is minted. If you want to peg out, that's where the open network of stackers sign to initiate the peg out. And then SBTC is exited, burn function, the protocol threshold signature script happens, and then Bitcoin is redeemed and sent to the L1 address. So all of this is happening between two layers that play nicely, Bitcoin and stacks, and then all moving forward through smart contracts. So what would happen if we were to integrate a little AI? That's where we hope you all can come in with our bounty. But in summary, no peg in, peg out fees, no custodians, the incentives for peg signers, open membership, no fork or changes to Bitcoin code. Bitcoin is the most held, most liquid asset, and the opportunity to build applications for Bitcoin is massive and ready for developers. So this is the fun part. This is a little bit of alpha that has not been released as of yet until now. So the testnet dev program for SBTC not only opens next month, but there's up to $50,000 in bug bounties, grants, and rewards. So please scan if you can. Otherwise, I will give you the website audibly. But if you're interested in learning more from a technical standpoint, scan here for the white paper. If you want to look at insights, you can scan here for that. And then if you're looking for the website, either scan or you can simply type in sbtc.tech. sbtc.tech. And stay tuned. Also, if you're in London or in the England area, the foundation and a lot of ecosystem movers and shakers will be in London for Bitcoin Unleashed next month, and there'll even be a hackathon. Hackathon 3 and AI to play nicely. Before we can even get to that, we have to understand AI in general. So most people are familiar with AI, but the mechanics on how it works is what we're going to extrapolate. When I say LLMs, I'm not like fumbling over the alphabet. LLMs stands for large language models. They're trained on held at a natural language processing tasks like text generation, translation, summarization, and question answering. Most popular examples GPT-3, Google's BERT, and Meta's Blender bot. They use an architecture called transformers, which process text as input and output tokens. LLMs are pre-applications. They require massive resources to train, from billions of parameters to trillions. So we're talking about big data. And if anyone here has ever used ChatGPT, when there was the rollout of GPT-4, there was a very slow and almost methodical rollout where not everyone had access to it. Only people who paid had access to it. And if you did have access to it, maybe it would freeze, or people wouldn't be able to all use it at the same time. Massive resources to train, and we're already moving on to, from what a lot of people are saying, GPT-5 and even GPT-6, which I will mention shortly. But once we have the LLM piece set up, we need to figure out the approach. So we have all of this data that's been trained, but how is it trained? So there are a few different pathways that some people choose: machine learning, deep learning, or natural language processing. Machine learning uses statistical models and algorithms that unsupervised learning or reinforced learning. Supervised learning is where algorithms learn from labeled data, making predictions or classifications. Unsupervised learning deals where algorithms find patterns or structures in unlabeled data. And then the last component is reinforcement learning, where agents learn to make decisions through trial and error, receiving rewards or punishments for their actions. Deep learning is where it uses neural networks to learn from layered representations of data, and it excels at perception tasks. Lastly, which is most common in the output, is natural language processing. It enables understanding and generation of human language, and it powers chatbots and more. This is the very interesting part. I spoke on a little bit of tribal infighting from the standpoint of the L1 community around ordinals. It's really interesting. If you look on Twitter, there's a lot of infighting from the standpoint of like, what is the AI language of choice? Currently, the most popular programming language for AI is Python, but it is possible to develop AI applications using JavaScript. So services like Anthropic, for example, which is one of my personal favorites. I just like how they're structured. Little side banter, but services like Anthropic allow you to integrate powerful AI models into any application using simple APIs. There's no direct model training needed. And then from the standpoint of other services like Google Cloud, they allow you to leverage pre-built AI capabilities using their JavaScript SDKs. And then there's Runway ML. And there are other libraries as well. So there's options. Python is generally what I see most of, especially if you use platforms like Auto GPT, which allows for you to have an AI bot. As long as you have an open AI API key, you can have Auto GPT where you can name it. So let's say Stacks GPT. You can give it 5 different tasks, and then it can run autonomously with internet access. So it'll search up the internet to conduct the task in completion. I tried it out a few times. It was building stuff while I was sleeping. It was super cool. But if you wanted to output any sort of boilerplate for code or any sort of code to kind of build alongside with you, AutoGPT is going to spit out code that's made in Python. So if that's not what you're looking for, it might be more of a headache to like extrapolate from Python to another language. So something to consider if you are going to really get into AI, Python is kind of where most people are landing. And then lastly, which is the super interesting and somewhat scary part. AI to AGI. AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. So I had a chance to speak with someone that I can't mention, but they know some people. I'll say it that way. And they're saying that AGI isn't necessarily 5 years away. Like I put that here because that's kind of the benchmark. I'm saying it's almost like 3 years away, if less, possibly less. And that is kind of cumbersome for a lot of people who work in the AI space for a lot of different reasons. So, why is that? AGI will have the ability to acquire new skills and knowledge from experience across different domains. It will leverage knowledge gained in one context and apply it effectively to new situations. It will make connections between diverse concepts to derive new insights and think beyond examples. It will come up with novel and unconventional ideas. It will understand and interact naturally with humans, following social norms. It will possess the everyday reasoning skills about the world that humans acquire as they grow up. And the most interesting fact is that AGI is projected to be less than 5 years away. This person told me like 3 or less, possibly accomplished in either GPT-5 or GPT-6. This person told me GPT-5 is AGI. I can't reveal my sources, but like this is a mover and shaker. So GPT-5, it's crazy. And for people who don't know, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer and refers to large language models made by OpenAI. So there's some big players in the space of AI, usual suspects, IBM, OpenAI, Anthropic, Amazon, Apple, which is interesting. X, formerly known as Twitter, still trying to get used to that. But yeah, there's a lot happening in the space of AI. My question is, what does this mean for developers? What does this mean for founders? What does this mean in space that we all exist in and love, which is Web3? Especially when you consider a lot of these models that are trained on data, most of them are private. Like we don't necessarily know what data. We know from like press releases what they say, but do we really know? And that's where I'm personally a fan of open source in the space of AI, but it's difficult. There's still some hurdles to be overcome from the standpoint of how to train data leveraging open source tech. But I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there. But we're gonna do some introspection. I have 4 questions for you all. I want you all to write them down, type them down, or just think about them. Does Web3 need AI, or does AI need Web3? Does Web3 need AI, or does AI need Web3? Second question, is AI the product, or is it the feature? Is it the product, or is it the feature? I asked this question, and I'll preface this a little bit. I remember being on Product Hunt, and I saw once the API for OpenAI was available, there were all these wrapped applications. We've integrated OpenAI, and anything that had AI in it was like automatically in the top 10 on Product Hunt. Then I remember OpenAI went down for a while, like maybe for like 20, 30-ish minutes one day. And all of those API keys were for naught. So all of those products basically froze until, you know, OpenAI got their stuff together and removed cobwebs from servers and stuff started moving again. So it had me thinking, is AI the product or is it the feature? Third question, can you achieve product market fit without AI? Is AI needed for what it is that you're building, or is it an add on? Can you achieve product market fit without AI? Last question, how does a Web3 and AI combo serve your users? How does it serve your users? Is it cool? Is it something that every application should have now? Or is there a niche reason why you're combining Web3 with AI? I want to make sure that those questions are thought about and presented as you all are about to build and hopefully change the world through this hackathon. I personally believe that the greatest brain trusts on earth are working in the spaces of Web3 and AI. I personally do. Some of the smartest people I've ever come across in my life, I've come across in the spaces of AI and in the spaces of Web3. So, greatest brain trust. So, I think that no matter what path you take, whether you're more AI or whether you're more Web3, you are among titans of industry. And I believe that, the next wave of pioneers are actually in this call. So, let's build. I've done a lot of yapping. I want to begin to ideate with you all and present things that can hopefully seep into your subconscious as you begin to look at what's possible with not only Bitcoin and AI, but within this hackathon in general. And some of you all may go and found companies or open source projects. And I want to make sure that you all remember that it's possible to build on Bitcoin. So, with that stated, I want to arm you with some tools first. First things first, this might be a new concept, and I want to make sure that you all have a reference point as well as a community. So, DevRel specialist and person in that role at the foundation, his name is Kenny Rogers. He is a guru. He actually came from the space of Ethereum, was well versed in Solidity, found stacks, fell in love with what was possible, and began building literally on Bitcoin. So, he created this course called Bitcoin Primer, and it's an intro into building full stack dApps on Bitcoin. Durations 1 week, 10 hours. It's free. It's free. Did I say that it's free? So I think that's kind of the first stop for anyone that's interested in building on Bitcoin. It is a free course. So be sure to scan that and check that out. Next up is Stacks.js. So you can build everything on Stacks that you need using this essential JavaScript library. So Stacks.js plays nicely with Clarity. Be sure to scan that. Check it out, Stacks.js. All right, now we're going to get to the ideating phase. So I got 3 ideas for you all. Idea 1, an AI chat box, a chatbot dApp. So few steps. Of course, some elbow grease and a little bit of work can actually accomplish this idea. So idea 1, this is going to use Anthropic to train a conversational chatbot. It provides safety controls for responsible AI. Not sure if any of you all have used Anthropic. As I mentioned earlier in my little banter, it's one of my personal favorites because it has a constitution around it. So not only has it been trained on specific data and it's very similar to ChatGPT, but it has a constitution around it. Super cool, super interesting. So use Anthropic to train a conversational chatbot. Second step, deploy the API endpoint for the trained chatbot model to a serverless platform like AWS Lambda. Write a Stacks.js front-end dApp that calls the chatbot API to get responses to user messages. This is the fun part. Use Clarity smart contracts on Stacks to record user messages and bot responses on chain, and then let users rate the bot's answers to improve it over time as part of a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. So not only do you have an idea, but you also have a flow. When I'm speaking with devs or when I'm speaking with founders, which is mainly who I spend a lot of my time with, founders always have to think of product market fit. They have to begin with the end in mind, and they always have to think about user flows. So where are people going to utilize this chatbot? Potentially on a site, or maybe this is the platform that is the product. So how is that housed? Makes sense that you would want a community around this, not only for maintaining, but also from accountability, as well as promotion. That community could be a DAO. So from the standpoint of these ideas, not only are they just ideas that you all can run with outside of this hackathon, but they also have a sort of roadmap for you to think about when you're developing projects or even products or services. All right, so idea 2, we're going to talk about AI NFT generators. During the bull run, I'm sure a lot of people would have really enjoyed this, but no matter, it's a build run. We're going to build. So create a generative adversarial network or GAN model using TensorFlow and train it on a data set of digital artwork and images. Build a Stacks.js app that allows minting NFTs by prompting the GAN model with text descriptions. Upload GAN-generated image to IPFS for storage and permanence. Mint an NFT on Stacks, referencing the IPFS hash of the generated artwork. Program the NFT metadata to include the prompt used to produce that art piece. Really interesting opportunity here. And there's a bonus. Now that ordinals exist, you can try to do this with ordinals rather than with IPFS. There are some people within the Stacks community that are rallying around having Stacks and ordinals play well together. So be on the lookout for some open source things that may be coming through the pipeline with not only Bitcoin and Stacks, but also Stacks and ordinals. Last idea, on-chain ID verification. Decentralized identities are huge. And I personally am still on the lookout for what could be that scalable thing. When I fly and go through TSA PreCheck, or when I look at Clear, I see those machines. And I also noticed that Clear is the same company that is doing verification for LinkedIn. So if you do kind of a KYC situation on LinkedIn, they'll give you a verified thing like this person is a real person, not a bot trying to like sell you some sales funnel. So there is definitely need for decentralized verification regarding identities. So this is the idea. Simple steps, little elbow grease might be able to make it happen. And I hope someone does. This would be a really huge unlock. Train an image recognition model to identify valid ID documents. Use Stacks.js and Clarity smart contracts to store hashed verified IDs on chain. Emphasis on the hashed. And then build a decentralized identity app powered by AI verification behind the scenes. Maintain user privacy while checking identities on chain. Could be a huge unlock for someone. So, in summary, before we talk about the bounty, because it's $3,000 bounty, it's pretty cool. I want you all to go big. I want you all to go build, and I want you all to go Bitcoin. So, what does that look like from the standpoint of this bounty and building on Bitcoin? Our bounty is called Proof of AI, $3,000. And too long didn't read it. Basically, an AI agent that can interact with Clarity smart contracts using Stacks.js. All right. This could go in a lot of different directions. You can have an agent that generates contract calls, but requires user confirmation to sign the transaction. You can have an AI agent that has its own private key and can unilaterally initiate transactions. There's a lot. So we left it open and flexible, but the main thing is leverage Stacks.js, utilizing smart contracts with Clarity and AI. You do that in your top tier, you got $3,000 coming your way. That's my time regarding the presentation. I am accessible. That is my Twitter. That is also my Discord. Please join our Stacks Discord. It's awesome. Some of the most amazing brains I've ever met are in that Discord, and super friendly. If you have questions, if you're like, hey, I missed all the QR codes, where are the docs for this, this, and this, people will give them to you, no problem. That's also my email address if you all have any questions. And I am happy for the opportunity to not only speak and present to you all. Thank you again to Learn Web3. Truly appreciate the opportunity. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I will stop sharing now. And I see that we have some questions. So I'm going to begin to scroll. These that haven't been answered, I will be sure to read out the question, and then I will be sure to respond, of course. All right. Shout out between Kenny and myself. I know we'll get some answers tended to. Right. So I'm scrolling. I literally scroll. Shout out the donkey said I am now a Stacks maximalist. Let's see. So excited I accidentally did a hard refresh. Respect. Transfer. Questions are coming in. Okay. Answered all my questions already. Loved it. Okay. Really great presentation for SBTC. I wish I could have done it. Yeah, it's actually cool things to they've done. So it just makes sense for you all to, as you wait for some of the SBTs next month and the testnet program, start with what we have on Web 3 because you're at edge. Let's see here. Kenny is a goat. I did see that comment. Kenny is a goat. That is true. Could you share JSQ in this hackathon? I participate in the hackathon. Absolutely, especially considering this particular hackathon, you have time horizon from when the hackathon is done. So depending on how hard you grind and really focus in, you have an opportunity to learn what you need to learn. But you also have an opportunity for the hackathons that I've participated in actually win and finishing something. I think like founders, developers can say in their head, like, well, before I present this and submit this, it needs to be functional. It doesn't have to be a thing yet. Because I personally believe like once you ship one thing and submit one thing to a hackathon and you see like what it can be, please slide down. I want to make sure that I have that one. Oh, well, thank you for that. All right. Any other questions? They're at my head about these slides. Okay. I know that Learn Web that way in deck from that standpoint, and this presentation as well. Yeah, top of your head. A good beginner project. Are we talking about good beginner project in general regarding stacks? I just want to make sure I have this question right. Huddle one. Might as well slide back to for that in general. Good question. Well, whenever you think of like chats, but I also think of like token. If there's a way, and I think a good case would be like a token gated Telegram. What it is from the standpoint of having something that is token gated where you have to verify like miss one, you have to start the that kind of a good beginner project to ideate with. And there are tools where you can to take the ball in. So that's what I think. Just the idea can be beginner, but it doesn't have to be scaled down, if that makes sense. Just because it might be simple for you to think about in math. So that's what I would say. I dropped the link, so hopefully that link works for everyone. Just want to make sure. And if not, I can redrop the link. Seems to work for me. Okay, perfect. So that link works. Stay tuned to YouTube as well. They will be. I think that's it. If there are no more questions, I'm happy to sit here and give you all some time in the world and build on stacks and all that stuff. So, looking forward to building on stacks. We welcome you. All are welcomed. All are welcomed. All right. So I guess I'll mute here and I'll put it back in the hands of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the slides as well. So we'll put it up on YouTube. I'll put the link to the slides in the description there as well if anybody needs to refer back for the QR codes or the ideas. But yeah, no, really appreciated it. I look forward to seeing what AI stacks, hacks everybody comes up with. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And thank you, Chris, for presenting once again. All right.
It was my honor. Thank you.